Big 12 media. You went full Texas. You never go full Texas. You don't buy that? Ask Sean Penn, 2001. I am Sam. You went full Texas. You never go full Texas.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. We are available on every single podcasting platform as well as visually on YouTube. You can find me personally on Twitter at AllDayOState. And today we got to talk about the poll. I mean, we covered just a hair of it a little bit yesterday, but it deserved its own little time here. I was on a show earlier, and we got to talk a little bit about this, and I was basically asked, how can you think that Texas is going to be pretty good this year, but also be upset by the fact that they're voted number one? Well, it's not necessarily even so much about number one as it is the amount, right? 41 first place votes, I think it was, as opposed to the second place voting in Kansas State at 14. And then having OU at 3, whatever, I'm indifferent, right? I just want to have the conversation about why we're still trying to do this go full Texas thing. Like, I really thought that at some point in time in the Big 12, quote unquote, media's time frame, they would, maybe make Texas do something first. And I do think this is probably their best shot in the last decade, 12 years, that, that they're going to be pretty daggone good this go around. But to completely bypass Kansas State by that amount of votes is preposterous to me. If anything, it should have been flipped in reverse. If you would have told me blind test that Kansas State got 41 first place votes, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's K-State. They're usually pretty stable. They're usually pretty solid. You know what they bring to the table. We know what a quality coach Chris Klieman is. We know right now that Colin Klein has the quarterback to run the system that he was famous for running in college. And if you want to add some wrinkles to it, a little bit more of a high-flying presence, sure, fine. I think you could probably do that as well. I know people are worried that Deuce Vaughn is no longer there, and they are worried they lost some guys on defense. But if you see what they did in the transfer portal, they filled a lot of needs. They filled a lot of gaps, and they already believe in the running back. His name escapes me at the moment, so some K-State people hammer in here and let me know. But it was number 31, had some amazing moments last season. K-State's going to produce, especially on the ground. They've always been able to find running backs. They've always been able to build that kind of into their foundation. I mean, heck, it is their foundation. They're pretty squared away, it appears, on the offensive line. They know what they have at quarterback now, as I mentioned in the show earlier. If you get down to Rubley, okay, cool. I guess we can stomach a conversation where K-State doesn't look so hot. Again, with OU at 3, I mean, I'm indifferent, right? Do they deserve to be there? Probably not. Are you getting some of the same stuff as Texas? Probably. I mean, let's face it. Texas has the quote-unquote best roster every single year in every single sport all across the land. We hear it over and over and over and over and over and all the time. And it's 95% of the time true. Yeah, they should have the best roster on paper all the time. Now, why both can be true is because the only thing that the University of Texas has earned is anything but first place. Like if you would have put Texas as number 3 or number 2, I mean, I think you could say even that's pushing it. I can buy the argument that Texas can be number 2. I can. I cannot buy the argument that they're surefire number 1. I think Quinn Ewers is pretty daggone good. I think Malik Murphy is possibly even potentially as good, if not better. I think Malik Murphy offers a lot of things that Texas has been looking for a long time. Are there guys going to be bigger, stronger, faster? Sure. But we've beat them like a drum for the last decade plus. So this whole idea that because yet again, they have the most highly rated guys or whatever, it's going to automatically equal. This is why they're number 1. That's ridiculous. There's nobody that voted in that 41 voters that can give you a logical reason why Texas is number 1, other than the fact that, well, look at the roster. But we've been over this time and time again, year after year after year after year after year. Texas is always pegged somewhere in the top 3, regardless of where they finish. And it's usually 1 or 2, regardless of where they finish, regardless of their recruiting, regardless of their transfers, regardless of whoever they lost. It doesn't matter. And if you want to sit here and act like there's not some stuff rolled in here that is designed for the betterment of the SEC, you're crazy. Absolutely crazy. I understand why Big 12 punditry. Actually, no, I don't. I don't understand why Big 12 punditry would have that many ridiculous votes. But again, yeah, cool. They're going to be fast. They're going to be big. They're going to be, quote unquote, talented. But the number 1 spot with 41 votes, that's a joke. That's an absolute joke. Again, if you flip-flop them, you give K-State 41 votes, and you give Texas 14. Okay, sure. I understand that argument. I see Texas's roster too. I see what they could potentially be. But they don't have Bijan Robinson no more. They don't have Roschon Johnson no more. And that's partially, I think, what made Quinn Ewers look good. Again, I'm a Quinn Ewers believer. I'm a fan of that quarterback room on the 40 acres. But you're telling me that Texas is number 1 because they have a guy named Arch Manning that won't see a snap all year? I mean, come on. What are we doing? Somebody from quote-unquote Big 12 media help me make it make sense. I'll be at Big 12 media days, right? So maybe you can just tell me face-to-face. I'm fine with that too. I just need some justification other than, well, look at all the 5 stars they got. Well, look at all the 5 stars Alabama had last year. Or, I mean, Texas A&M, sorry. I mean, you could talk about Bama. Bama's still Bama. Bama's going to be Bama. Bama's going to do Bama things, but Bama's quarterback play is going to be kind of interesting to watch this season. Bama offensively is going to be worth a watch this season. And I'm not saying it isn't they're going to light the boards up and it's going to be awesome, high-flying greatness. It's not what I'm saying. But, yeah, another couple things to cover there. I'm one of those people, I still am buying in TCU. I keep hearing this, they're going to fall backwards thing. I think that's just, I don't know. I think it's ridiculous. I do know that Sonny Dykes was able to do a lot last year with the roster that was taken over. I get that. But again, if you look at some of the guys they were able to bring in, clearly the sentiment nationally was like, you know what? I can go there and I can contribute and I can help. And as we're going to get to next, that iteration of the 3-3-5 is going to be more than fine. They've got the guys to make it work. And if you'll see there, that's the next thing we got to get to. But real quick, you know, I got to tell y'all today we're brought to you by FanDuel. It is America's #1 sportsbook betting partner for a reason. And as baseball season is here, and you know I love it because we're traveling, we're hitting the road, we're going to state to state to state, playing baseball tournaments. I can't wait. Matter of fact, we got to wake up 5:30 in the morning and get on the road again. With all that, it gives you the perfect time to see what all in the baseball realm you could potentially make money on. Take a chance, take a swing, full count, sign yourself up. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get yourself hooked up. Right now, we're giving up to $200 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. That's right. $20 holla times 10, $200. You're going to get back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So help yourself. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. America's the #1 sportsbook betting partner and also the official partner for Major League Baseball. All right, so you see the next thing on the Dilly Mojave. I mean, I'm sure it has a strategic name, but I strategically just named it the Dilly Mojave. Anywho, is Bryan Nardo's 3-3 defense. So I was actually reading an article from Pokes Report, Robert Allen. Good job, brother man. Again, we give props where props are due. And he was able to kind of break down some of the stuff. And I very, very often don't really get lost in the comments and things of that nature. You know, I dissect literally everything that I can, and then I put it to highlight clips and videos, and I make it all make sense, right? But I was reading down in some of the comments, and I think this article that Robert Allen wrote was pretty awesome, right? And you're seeing people talk about how this 3-3-5 is a gimmick, and it's not going to work, and it's going to be a nightmare, and it's super cute that Oklahoma State is trying this gimmicky stuff, and gimmicky stuff works on offense, but gimmicky stuff will never be prevalent on defense, sorry. And nobody runs it, nobody anywhere that knows anything runs it, and it's not being ran in the NFL. Can we stop with that? You can go pop on film right now. The Carolina Panthers ran some 3-3-5 last year a lot. You can go back, look, the Atlanta Falcons ran 4-2-5 iterations of the 3-3-5. They would mix that nickel guy with like a linebacker style of guy. That's NFL. There's other teams. I'm pretty sure the Cardinals were an NFL team that messed around 3-3-5. Let's not pretend that just because the NFL is late to some parties that it's not a formidable force. Well, we all mentioned John Haycock's system, right, that he runs at Iowa State. Obviously, Syracuse has got something going in the same light. TCU, West Virginia, Cincinnati, obviously Big 12 schools. There's plenty of other schools outside the Big 12 as well. But here's the deal. Here's kind of what I wanted to get to. Our iteration of this 3-3-5 defense is going to be a little bit different because primarily our safety play. And as Robert Allen pointed out, you need really two things to make this work perfectly. And that's you need the big guy up front that can eat up multiple guys to allow your defensive end and your linebackers to do the jobs, right? And you don't have a strong middle guy in the linebacker room or a presence right there to be able to help dissect and coordinate everything because in 3-3-5, it's about exploiting of gaps. And those gaps need to be exploited by the backers. Where I mentioned earlier that ours is going to be a little bit different is because our skill and talent at the safety position, we're just loaded, right? We've covered it 100 times. We don't need to get too far into what I think about the safety room and what you guys think about the safety room. Speaking of you guys, got to give a shout out to Wet Blanket. I mean, I love all the regulars. Clearly, Robert Pierce, you got a lot of things to say. OT, thank you for swinging through on a fairly consistent basis. But Wet Blanket, and mind you, Wet Blanket and I didn't always see eye to eye, and we still disagree from time to time. But that dude, whenever he gets on other people's shows, he's a good ambassador for O State fans. I just want to put that out there. He likes to go back and forth, the banter. He has fun. He's willing to give you historical, context to what people are insinuating. And I appreciate everybody out here who does watch this stuff on a regular basis. And it is fun seeing you across different platforms and different shows. It's just, I don't know, it's just pretty cool. But anywho, when you look at the 3-3-5 that we're going to be running and why it's a little bit different is, well, the 4-2-5, that's the base, okay? So we're still going to run a decent amount of even man front. It's not exclusively going to be 3-3-5 because of guys like Colin Oliver. When you have a quote-unquote tweener that is good enough to play a defensive line, but also fast enough and agile enough to play as a linebacker. Instead of that guy being a tweener and you're like, well, I don't know where to go with him. Now he's an asset because you have 2 years of evidence to go look and see what Colin Oliver can do as a defensive end at this level. He can wreck shop. He can tear down a house. That's proven. And now he's cut down 6-7 pounds, a little bit leaner, a little bit faster, still has the same explosiveness, still has the same ability, still can put his hand in the dirt and knock you back and hit you with multiple moves when need be. That's a difference maker. Not everybody has a Von Miller type of guy just hanging out. Some people might think they do, but those guys don't come readily available all the time, all over the place. And then you factor in somebody like a Kendall Daniels, who is not your prototypical safety by any stretch of the imagination. The dude is a linebacker. He's 6'4", 225. Right now. He could bump up and play linebacker with any linebacker in the country. He could go back and play free safety with any free safety in the country. That's not normal. That's not average. That is something that makes us crazy. And then the linebacker position. We know what Justin Wright's going to provide. We know what Xavier Benson can do. Tell me we don't have all the pieces. And then the cherry on top, and as I said in that show earlier, the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast, was people can write it down. Justin Kirkland will most likely be preseason All Big 12. Or not preseason, I'm sorry, after the season. First team, All Big 12. And then when you think like, okay, so the original idea for the 3-3-5 was, I mean, it was designed because, is it Joe Lee Dunn, I believe? He didn't have the size. You know what I mean? He didn't have the size to compete from the defensive line perspective, but he was loaded for bear at linebacker. So that is where that started from. That is true. But this, again, this misnomer that teams that go to the 3-3-5 are teams that don't have the guys big enough to play down low. I just want to go ahead and help dispel that myth a little bit here, right? We heard how often, how many times Mike Gundy, this is true when he would talk about we don't get a lot of 300-pound dudes in Stillwater. He said that for years and years and years. But let's backtrack, ladies and gentlemen. This is different. Cody Waltersheed is almost 300 pounds as defensive end. Marcus Duckworth's over 300 pounds. Xavier Ross, 300 pounds. Jed Wagner's over 300 pounds. Jalen Tucker's 300 pounds. Aiden Kelly's almost 200 pounds. AJ Ridner's almost 300 pounds. Colin Clay, who's going to be spelling Justin Kirkland's 310 pounds. Obviously, Justin Kirkland is a mountain of a man at 6'4", almost 350. But I think Eman Oates is going to have a pretty productive year for the role we're asking. Guess what? He's over 300 pounds. Offensive line. It goes on and on. Like I know we have had this conversation, so this isn't exactly for all of y'all, but it's for us to be able to send it to people and get them to understand that the old times of Oklahoma State are done and gone. The new times of Oklahoma State, the reason we're not running a 3-3-5 because we don't have the guys up front to make a difference. We're still an even front style of team. We just happen to have a dude that can also stand up and go cover the flats, who can also run 16 yards down the field with tight ends. I mean, it's not about just the X's and O's side of it, which we all know Bryan Nardo loves that side, right? You got to have the guys, and you got to have the guys that in the middle, like a Justin Kirkland. You got to have a guy at linebacker. And then if you have somebody at safety who's the same size as a linebacker, there's your sign. See, that is what makes this different. is that safety room is crazy. And we do have the size up front. We do have the meat and taters and beef to do stuff that people are assuming that we can't do. And that's fine. Like you've heard me say, almost the more the merrier, right? The more people who doubt us now, that's better for us in the long run, right? It will be, unless you're not on FanDuel, because if you're not on FanDuel, you're not going to have the chance to make the money, honey. Go hammer the over right now, FanDuel.com/lockedon. The 335 was originally built 20 years ago almost because of lack of defensive linemen. That is a fact. And an overabundance of linebackers. That is a fact. But it ain't 20 years ago, bub. It ain't. So let's stop pretending that's what this is. We've got the size. We've got the guys. It actually might be more beneficial for us to run more even man front. And you are going to see some even man front. That is still being practiced right here, right now. We're not completely doing away with 4-down linemen. We're just showing people what a 335 with this many weapons at 3 different levels can do. I mean, our talent at corner is fine. The depth there, yes, that is cause for concern. That's fair, which is another reason why I think, I don't know. I think we're going to have a really good shot of getting Devon Jordan. Because OU is pretty loaded at corner, and they have a lot of young guys at corner. Oklahoma State, we got a lot of talent, but we don't have a lot of depth. And then you have somebody like Ladarius Webb and Cameron Epps that's going to be able to simultaneously move all over the field, whether it be safety or corner. That's a good problem to have, but the word problem still is there. We're going to lack some depth at the cornerback position. We're going to be able to use some coming in. And then the third thing you can see there, Kelly Maxwell. Of course it hurts the heart. If the rumors are true, and she is in fact transferring, that's not as bad. Like, that hurts, right? But that doesn't hurt as much as the fact that we're hearing that she's most likely headed down the road to Norman, Oklahoma. That hurts. And if people want to say, like it feels like you got stabbed in the heart when Trace Ford left, well, I actually, because of the reason Trace Ford left, I get it. And we're adjusting some of the medical side of things. And that, to me, might be an indicator here as well. Nobody can watch the end of the season and say that it was the same Kelly Maxwell that we watched at the first half of the season. You could, if you're OU, you could make a sales pitch of you got mismanaged in Stillwater. Come to Norman. We won't manage you the same way. We'll work around this. And if you have an injury, we'll decide to do this instead of this. That is the only thing I see here that makes a lick of sense with this one. That's the only thing. Almost any other reason I wouldn't get. It's not going to be anything miraculous, in my opinion. It's got to be something pretty simple. But I will say, yeah, of course it's going to hurt. Of course it's going to have an effect. Of course it's a bad look. Of course. But I will say that it should add just a scotch of extra incentive to finally chop down that tree, maybe. Because make no mistake, OU softball is, I've been calling them the Bama of softball for a long time. And that still holds true. But Bama got caught by Georgia, and now Bama's trying to reel Georgia in. We've seen it happen. Losing Kelly Maxwell to the enemy, if if it is in fact something, somewhat medical, how you should have been handled, this, that, the other type thing, it sucks. It does. It does add more fuel to the fire. It is weird, though. My buddy Shannon, thank you, brother. He sent me some stuff on Kelly, and I got to watch. And just a week ago, she was singing the praises of Coach Kenny G and Stillwater, and her decision to come back for another year of college, and she made it so early on, and then you got Coach Kenny G's wife, coming out and speaking about how awesome Kelly is and how committed she is to Stillwater, and then this news starts to drop. As you can tell, I'm somewhat speechless. And rest assured, it takes a little bit for that to happen. Yeah, it's bothersome. It is bothersome. I think, I think this one makes you want to drink a beer. We lost some football transfers that didn't make any sense, but I'll be honest with you, they didn't feel like this. Losing Spencer and Mason, even if it would have been the same day, I don't think it would have felt quite like this. Because we view OSU softball in a different light than ever before. We view Coach Kenny Gieske as the reinventor of the wheel in Stillwater, and he has been. But he's been like, the coach whisperer. He's the guy that gets big-time transfers to come to Stillwater. He doesn't lose them to other places. So it hits different, just in general. And then you factor in that it could be down the road in Norman. And then, God forbid, it works out and she has a Jordy Ball style of season. So I'm not necessarily worried about the here and now. I think Coach Kenny G's got this thing. I think softball's in a great spot regardless of what Kelly Maxwell decides to do. But make no mistake, this is a big one. This is a big one. So, who knows? Maybe you know what? We'll have to do a check-in with Aubin. That'll solve it. We'll get with Aubin and Chelsea and figure this thing out here. But goodness, as always, I love you. God bless. And go Pokes. And thank you very much for tuning in to make this your first listen today here on Locked On Oklahoma State. All righty, y'all. Later, taters.